My name's Alycia Schlesinger, and on June 7th, 2007, there was only one thing I wanted to do with my life, and that was end it. I still remember sitting in the courtyard in front of my apartment in Santa Monica, feeling like I had completely ruined my life. I mean, 2 short years before then, I was so clear about what I wanted, and I was going for it, full force. And somehow, unconsciously, I had driven my entire life into a brick wall. I was devastated, and I didn't know what to do about it. And at the same time, I was waking up every day with this feeling all over me, like it was this massive sadness, but it also felt like there was black tar all over my body. And it was just this relentless depression. Like, have you ever seen those depression commercials where there's a person holding an umbrella and it's sunny around everyone except for them, it's raining right on them? They're real. I woke up like that every day for 2.5 years. I had no idea if my life was ever gonna be the way it used to be again. And this stuff all seemed to happen out of the blue. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. My parents were terrified, I was terrified. Everybody's best solution was to medicate me. It didn't feel like a solution to me. I had spent the previous 6 years doing focused personal work. I got my master's in spiritual psychology. I figured if anybody could find their way out of this thing, I could. There had to be a way, and I was determined to find it. Around the same time, the man that I was in love with let me know that he had met someone else and that he was moving in with her. And I remember saying to him, "Did you ever really love me?" And he said, "Yes, I loved you. I stopped when you stopped." And I said, "I never stopped loving you." And he said, "No, I stopped when you stopped loving you." And I was like, wow, he's right. I knew he was right. I knew I didn't love myself. I didn't understand why, but I knew he was right. So I made a decision right there. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's gonna make it better, but I am committed to getting to the other side of this thing and to loving myself and loving my life again, no matter what it takes. I just made a decision. There was nothing else to do but push forward. And there were setbacks here and there. One night I was so angry. The pain in my body was excruciating, and I was only sleeping like 3 hours a night. So one night I just got so mad at God, and I started screaming, "I hate you. I hate you. I've done everything you asked me to do, and all I wanted out of this life was to be loved. I just wanted to experience love, and it's like it was too much to ask." Well, there it was. That's exactly right. That's what my whole life had been geared towards. I didn't realize it anymore, but I just wanted to have that experience of feeling loved. When I was 11 years old, 3 things had happened to me. That day standing in the bedroom, I didn't remember any of them, but they were important events that were going to change my life. When I was 11, my mom bottomed out from alcoholism. I still remember the night that she sat on my bed and said that her and my dad were gonna get a divorce, until I started crying, and I was like, "No, Mommy, no." And she said, "Yes, honey, it's true." And then she went and passed out, and I spent the entire night up checking her breathing. I thought she was dead, and my dad wasn't home. A couple months after that, I had my first surgery. So I was born with a birth defect called a lymphangioma, and it was a tumor that was wrapped around my facial nerve. So when I was 11, I was going in for my first surgery. And they took me a half an hour early. My parents were at breakfast. So there I was screaming down the hallway for my mom when they wheeled me into the pre-op, and there an intern gave me 17 shots while she was trying to find my veins, all in 5 minutes. My mom finally broke into the pre-op, but by then the damage was done. I had had 2 major traumatic experiences within 3 months of each other. Well, when I did remember these experiences, I finally understood what that black tarry stuff was all over my body. It was trauma. It was all that repressed emotion that I couldn't handle as a child, so my body froze it so I could survive. All the personal work I had done prior to that moment had thawed it out, and it was melting like a tidal wave. That's why I cried for 2.5 years. But the third event is actually the one that probably changed my life the most. See, I was in love when I was 11. There was this boy, John, and I thought the sun set and rose on him. I had a heart frame in my bedroom with his picture in it. I loved him. I thought he was the greatest thing ever. And we'd go to the back of the classroom and we'd spin the globe and we'd find a country that we said we were gonna move to when we got older and get married. So we settled on Kamchatka, and that was our commitment to each other. We'll get married there in Kamchatka when we get older. But one day I came in and he was holding another girl's hand. And in that moment, I made a decision that would change my life for the next 25 years. I told myself in that moment, see, of course he picked her. Why would he pick you? Your mother's an alcoholic. You have a birth defect. She's prettier. She's got better clothes. And if you love him and he loves her, there must be something really wrong with you. You can't trust your heart. So that's what I decided. And for the next 25 years, I focused on trying to be everything that everybody wanted me to be because I wanted to be loved. And I thought, based on that experience, that was the only way I was ever going to get it. So no wonder I was suicidal. When I was 11, I knew I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a performer. I used to write all the time, and I wanted to be a cheerleader. I became a basketball player and a mortgage broker. And I left my creative, feminine side far behind me. It all began to make sense. So in that moment, in that bedroom, when I was screaming at God, I had an experience of divine love that also changed my path. All of a sudden, I heard the words, "Who are you to tell me who's worthy of you? You don't know how to trust, you don't know how to receive, and you don't know how to surrender. Now feel this. This is what's real." And in that moment, I've had this experience of love. It was like a full spectrum rainbow. It was completely whole, not like anything I'd ever experienced before. It made everything here look black and white. And I remember while I was feeling it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anyone other than who I am. I am already loved. I am loved just because I am. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to be. Well, it was revolutionary. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I had the experience. That experience served to light my way for the next 3 years. And in 2010, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was particularly devastating because she was my best friend. She was the sole person that probably got me through all those years of not knowing what was going on because her love for me was so unconditional. She was the one person that always remembered who I was, no matter what happened to me, and she never let me forget it. And she was the one person, no matter how much I flipped out, no matter how much I screamed, what kind of shape I was in, she never stopped loving me. And in the last 4 days of her life, I remember her saying to me, I was a fraud, honey. My life was a failure. I was a fraud. I never even got to be me. She had lost her house. She had lost the man that she loved. She'd lost all her money. She had nothing left. She didn't feel like she had anything left to live for. But I saw it through different eyes. See, in the last 4 days of her life, her hospital room was filled. She was never left alone, not once. Her hospital room was filled with people from Alcoholics Anonymous because she was 28 years sober. She got sober after that moment when I was 11. And from that moment on, she never let me down. And those people in that room were a testimony to exactly the person she was. She had changed their lives. And so that last night, when I got to be with her, and I sang to her for 6 hours before she took her last breath, I got to say to her, Mom, your life was a complete success. I am so proud to be your daughter. Who you are is amazing. I love you. You're my favorite person. And I promise to live into your example. Thank you. I love you. And with that, she did take her last breath. And I learned something really, really important in that moment. See, what I learned is my mom had no warning. She didn't know she was going to die. But it made me see that it was time for me to start being who I am. It was time for me to be that 11-year-old that I knew how to be, as if my life had never been interrupted. to do what I loved and to give back to people in the way that she did. And I'll leave you with this. One of my favorite people on the planet is my 3-year-old niece, Caitlin. Not only is she one of my favorite people, she's one of my greatest teachers. When she was 1.5 years and she was just learning how to walk, she was feeling her way around the room and she came upon a mirror. And she looked in the mirror and she just lit up. And I said, "Who is that, baby?" And she said, "Cakewen." She says Cakewen instead of Caitlin. And she looked in the mirror and she gave herself a huge kiss and she tried to hug herself in the mirror. And I had never seen anything like it before. But it made me realize, that's right. That's how we come in. That's exactly how we come in, loving ourselves. So a couple weeks ago, she started playing with a new little girl, and all of a sudden she was coming home every day acting like this little girl, talking like this little girl, using this little girl's mannerisms. Well, it particularly disturbed me. That was my whole life story. Finally, her mom took her aside and said, "Caitlin, honey, Mommy and Daddy love you so much. And you know what? When God made you, when God made Caitlin, God had something very special in mind, a very specific purpose. We want you to be Caitlin. We love Caitlin." Well, later on that night, she was playing on the bed and I was watching her and like, boop, there she was. There was Caitlin. And I was looking at her and smiling and she looked up at me and I said, "Do you know why I'm so happy, baby?" And she, in all her brilliant 3-year-old wisdom, said, "Because I love you." I said, "That's right, baby. That's exactly right."